Every night, millions of people over 60 do something that feels completely harmless. Some even believe it is helping them relax, helping them sleep, helping them steady their nerves, helping them avoid a bad blood sugar night, helping them wake up with better numbers in the morning. And that is exactly why this becomes dangerous. Because sometimes the thing people trust at bedtime is the very thing quietly setting them up for one of the worst blood sugar crashes of the entire day. Not at dinner, not after dessert, not in the afternoon, at 2 in the morning, at 3 in the morning, while they are asleep, while the house is dark, while nobody is watching, while the body is fighting a problem they do not even know has started. And by the time morning comes, the evidence is often so confusing that people blame the wrong thing completely. They blame dinner, they blame fruit, they blame rice, they blame medication, they blame age, they blame bad diabetes. They blame their whole body. But sometimes the real trigger was sitting in a glass a few hours before bed. That is what this video is about. Because there is one bedtime drink that can send blood sugar crashing overnight in exactly the kind of body that is least able to handle the shock, especially after 60, especially if diabetes is already in the picture, especially if medication is involved, especially if dinner was too light, especially if the person lives alone, especially if they have been waking up in the middle of the night sweating, shaky, anxious, or exhausted and never understood why. And the most dangerous part is this. The morning number often lies about what happened. That is the trap. You wake up, you check your glucose, and it is high. So you assume you ran high all night. Sometimes you did not. Sometimes your sugar dropped first, dropped hard, triggered a stress hormone emergency response, and then came flying back up before morning. So the number you see when you wake up is not the beginning of the story, it is the aftermath. That is why so many people never connect the dots. That is why doctors often miss it unless somebody asks the right question. That is why people stay stuck for months, sometimes years, blaming the wrong meal, changing the wrong medication, fearing the wrong food. So let's say the answer clearly right now. The one bedtime drink that can crash blood sugar overnight is alcohol, wine, whiskey, brandy, vodka, a small nightcap, a relaxing drink after dinner. Even that one glass people swear could not possibly matter, and before anyone says, "Hold on, I thought alcohol raises blood sugar," let me stop you right there. That confusion is exactly why this topic is so important. Because alcohol is deceptive. It does not always create one obvious immediate reaction. It does not always make the meter go low right away. It does not always make the person feel danger immediately. Sometimes it feels like nothing is wrong at all. In fact, sometimes it feels good. The body relaxes, the person gets sleepy, stress softens, the evening feels easier. And then later, when the person is deep in sleep, the real problem begins. That is the part most people never get properly taught. So let's slow this down and make it very clear. Your liver has one of the most important jobs in your entire body at night. It helps keep your blood sugar steady while you sleep. That job matters more than most people realize. Because when you are sleeping, you are not eating. You are not sipping juice. You are not having a snack every hour. You are not consciously correcting anything. Your body has to manage the night on its own. And one of the main organs doing that work is the liver. The liver stores glucose. The liver releases glucose. The liver makes new glucose when the body needs help getting through the night. That is one of the ways you make it safely from dinner to breakfast without your blood sugar collapsing. Now here is where alcohol changes everything. When alcohol enters the body, the liver treats it like a priority problem, not a casual side task, a priority. It moves alcohol metabolism to the front of the line, and while it is busy handling alcohol, it becomes much less able to do its usual overnight glucose support work the way it should. That is the whole mechanism most people never hear explained clearly. Your liver cannot fully focus on keeping blood sugar stable if it is tied up dealing with alcohol. That means one of your main overnight safety systems gets weaker, and if something else is already pushing your sugar down, the drop can become much easier to trigger. Now, if you are young, metabolically flexible, not taking any glucose-lowering medication, eating well, sleeping well, and otherwise stable, maybe your body gets through that stress without much trouble. But after 60, the equation changes. The body has less margin for error. Muscle mass is lower. Muscle is one of the major places glucose gets buffered and used, so lower muscle means less protection. Liver flexibility is often worse. The body's stress response may be more chaotic. Dinner may be smaller. Medication lists are longer. Sleep is lighter. Hydration is less stable. And many older adults are already living with diabetes, prediabetes, insulin resistance, fatty liver, poor sleep, or inconsistent meal patterns. That means one small bedtime drink can land very differently in a 68-year-old body than it did in the same person at 38. And that is what people keep misunderstanding. They think they are drinking the same way they always did. They are not. The body is not the same body anymore. And bedtime is not a neutral time. That matters too. Because the danger here is not just alcohol by itself, it is alcohol at night. Why is that such a problem? Because when alcohol is taken close to bedtime, you are creating the exact conditions that make a blood sugar crash harder to detect and harder to correct. You are about to go hours without food. You are about to lie still. You are about to become less aware of symptoms. You are about to depend on the liver to protect you, and you are about to do all of that while the liver is busy with alcohol. That is the collision. And if medication is on board too, the risk gets worse. Now let's talk about the exact pattern that causes the most trouble, because this is where a lot of people are going to recognize themselves. Dinner is light, maybe too light. A little soup, some salad, a small portion of something, maybe not much protein, maybe dinner was early, maybe appetite was poor. Then later comes the bedtime drink, a glass of wine, a little whiskey, something to unwind, something to help sleep, something that feels earned, something that has become part of the ritual. The person feels sleepy. They go to bed. For the first hour or two, nothing feels dramatic. Then around 1:30, 2 3 hours in the morning, blood sugar begins falling. The body senses danger, and when it senses danger, it does not respond gently. It responds like an emergency. Adrenaline rises, cortisol rises, glucagon rises. The heart may pound. The nervous system becomes alert. The liver gets pushed to dump glucose. The body starts fighting to keep the brain supplied with fuel. That is why the symptoms are often so strange. Some people wake sweating, some wake with their heart racing, some wake shaky, some wake anxious for no clear reason. Some have vivid dreams. Some wake with a headache. Some wake hungry. Some wake up at 3 a.m. feeling absolutely awful and cannot explain why. Some never fully wake at all and just feel wrecked the next morning. And this is where it gets even more deceptive. By morning, the blood sugar may not be low anymore. It may be high. That is the rebound. That is what fools people. They see the high number and think, I must have been high all night. Not always. Sometimes the high number is the body's overcorrection after the crash. That is why this problem keeps hiding in plain sight. Because the very evidence people trust most, the morning glucose reading, often tells only the last chapter of the story, not the full story. And if you only ever look at the morning number, you can miss the entire pattern. That is why some people spend months doing the wrong thing. They cut the wrong food. They fear the wrong dinner. They blame the wrong medication. They start becoming afraid of carbohydrates. They become more confused and more frustrated. All while the real trigger is still showing up in a glass every single night. Now I need to make something very clear. Not everyone who drinks alcohol before bed will experience this exact pattern, but some people are much more vulnerable than others. And if you fall into one of these groups, you need to take this seriously. The highest risk groups are these: anyone taking insulin, anyone taking sulfonylureas like glipizide or glyburide, anyone who already has a history of nighttime lows, anyone who often eats a light dinner and then drinks later, anyone over 60 with diabetes or unstable glucose patterns, anyone who wakes sweating, shaky, confused, or with pounding anxiety after drinking at night, anyone who lives alone and might not have another person there to notice when something is wrong. That last group matters more than people realize, because if your sugar drops while you sleep and nobody is there, the danger becomes much more serious. And I am not saying that to frighten you. I am saying it because honesty matters here. This is one of those patterns that sounds small right up until the moment it is not. Now let's talk about the drink people least want questioned. Wine. Wine has a protective image. Especially red wine. People associate it with heart health, with relaxation, with sophistication, with Mediterranean life, with doctors in old headlines saying a little wine might be good for you. That image protects it psychologically. People trust it more than they trust other alcohol. But your liver does not care about the image. Your liver sees alcohol. That is it. And if that alcohol shows up right before bed, in an older body, after a light meal, with diabetes medication already in the system, the body may not experience it as a health ritual at all. It may experience it as a glucose destabilizer. The same is true for whiskey, for brandy, for vodka, for that one small drink people keep telling themselves should not possibly matter. Sometimes one does matter, not because you are weak, not because your body is broken, because biology has changed. That is the whole point. Now let's go even deeper, because the danger here is not only metabolic, it is also behavioral. A bedtime drink often hides inside an emotional ritual. It is not just chemistry, it is comfort. Comfort after a lonely evening, comfort after stress, comfort after grief, comfort after pain, comfort after bad sleep the night before, comfort after a day that felt too long. That is why people defend it so strongly, because they are not only defending a drink, they are defending relief. And that makes this harder to change, because if you tell someone to stop the bedtime drink without understanding what it means emotionally, the habit often comes right back. So the answer here is not just remove the alcohol. The answer is replace the role it was playing. If the bedtime drink is about calm, you need another form of calm. If it is about ritual, you need another ritual. If it is about reward, you need another reward. If it is about loneliness, that has to be faced honestly too. Because chemistry alone does not keep habits alive. Emotion does. And unless you understand that, the advice never lasts. Now let's talk about the biggest mistake people make after hearing information like this. They assume the only dangerous alcohol is sugary alcohol. That is not true. Yes, a sweet cocktail can create its own glucose chaos. Yes, sugary drinks can spike you for one reason and destabilize you for another. But the main issue in this video is not simply sugar in the drink. It is alcohol's effect on the liver. That means even dry wine, plain whiskey, unsweetened vodka, or anything else people consider cleaner can still create this nighttime problem. The sugar content is not the whole story. The liver is the story. That is what makes this issue so easy to miss. Now, let's talk about what you should actually look for if you think this might be happening to you. Here is the pattern that should immediately make you suspicious. You drink at night, you go to bed feeling fine, then you wake around 2 or 3 a.m. sweating, shaky, anxious, restless, with a pounding heart, or vivid dreams, or a strange feeling of dread, or a headache, or sudden hunger. Then morning comes. You feel awful. You check your sugar. It is high, and the whole thing makes no sense. That pattern matters, because that pattern often means the bedtime drink did not relax your glucose system. It destabilized it. Now, how do you prove it? Not by guessing. That is the most important part of this entire video. You prove it with pattern tracking. If you use a glucose meter, check before bed. And if your doctor says it is appropriate, check again during the window when symptoms usually happen, around 2 or 3 a.m. If you use a continuous glucose monitor, even better. Look at the graph. See what actually happened. Do not rely only on how you felt, and do not rely only on the morning number, because the morning number may be the rebound, not the cause. That distinction can completely change how you understand your nights. Now let me say something clearly that needs to be said. Do not use alcohol as a blood sugar strategy. Do not use it because you are afraid of going high. Do not use it because you think it will settle your sugar. Do not use it because you think it helps you sleep your way through the problem. Alcohol is not glucose medicine. It is not sleep medicine, and it is definitely not a safe DIY fix for unstable overnight sugar. In the wrong body at the wrong time, it can make the entire situation worse. Now let's talk about what to do instead, because people need a real replacement, not just a warning. If the bedtime drink has become part of your nighttime unwind, replace the function, not just the liquid. If it is ritual, use ritual. A mug of herbal tea, sparkling water in the same wine glass if the ritual matters. A quiet wind-down routine, dimmer lights, music, reading, a warm shower, a conversation. A protein-forward evening snack if your own pattern and doctor say that makes sense. A routine that helps your nervous system settle without forcing your liver into a nighttime glucose conflict. That is the direction that works. Not punishment, not panic. Replacement. And if alcohol is something you still choose to have occasionally, timing matters. Earlier is safer than later. With a proper meal is safer than after a light dinner. Away from the edge of sleep is safer than right before bed. This is not about moral judgment. It is about metabolic timing. That is the part people never get told clearly enough. Now, I want to bring in one more thing because it matters especially for older adults. After 60, the body often looks normal until it doesn't. That is the danger. People think, I've been doing this for years. They think, one glass never used to affect me. They think, if it were a problem, I'd know. Not necessarily. Bodies become less forgiving quietly. The margin for error gets smaller quietly. Sleep gets lighter quietly. Liver flexibility changes quietly. Medication interactions become more complicated quietly. And then one day what used to be a harmless habit becomes a risky one. That is not failure. That is aging biology. And if you do not update your habits when the biology changes, the body eventually forces the issue. That is what many people are living through without realizing it. Now let's pull this all together. The one bedtime drink that can crash blood sugar overnight is alcohol. Not because it always causes an immediate low. Not because it always makes the meter look bad at bedtime. But because it interferes with one of the liver's most important overnight jobs, keeping blood sugar stable while you sleep. If medication is also lowering sugar, or if dinner was too light, or if the body is less resilient after 60, that risk becomes much greater. Then the body may panic, release adrenaline, cortisol, and glucagon, push sugar back up, and leave you with the exact kind of nighttime symptoms and confusing morning readings that cause people to blame the wrong thing for months. That is the hidden pattern. That is what almost nobody explains clearly. And once you see it, many mysterious overnight sugar problems stop being mysterious. What bedtime drink do you usually have, if any? Write it in the comments. And if you have ever woken up sweating, shaky, anxious, restless, or strangely exhausted after drinking at night, do not ignore that pattern. Because for many people, the body was warning them long before anyone explained what was really happening. If this helped you, share it with someone over 60 who has diabetes, prediabetes, unstable morning sugars, or a nightly drink they have never seriously questioned. Sometimes the most dangerous habits are the ones that feel the most normal. This is general educational information, not personal medical advice. If you have diabetes or take glucose-lowering medication, especially insulin or sulfonylureas, talk with your doctor before making significant changes. The goal is not to guess. The goal is to understand your pattern and act on real data. Take care of your evenings, take care of your liver, and pay attention to the quiet warnings, because sometimes the body crashes in the dark long before the morning number tells the real story.